Rolling. Good evening, everybody. My microphone is on, and we are back with the Catch the Sky podcast. This is Safe and Sweet Tea. We have a special edition this week. We have a guest in studio here to talk about endometriosis. She goes by the name of Dick Francisco. Say hi, Dick.
Hi.
Welcome, Dick.
And thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. We're excited to hear everything that you have to share on the topic. If anybody is interested in sharing their thoughts on what they hear in today's episode, you may do so on Twitter at CTSTerry or on Facebook or Instagram by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. So you're here to talk about lady issues, right? Endometriosis specifically?
Lady humps.
You brought the right person. Dick is prepared to talk about lady problems. So,
Endometriosis. What is endometriosis?
there's so many woman problems, but I'll stay on track with just endometriosis. So what is it? Okay, so going to paint a bloody picture for you. So if you think about a female menstrual cycle, her period, we bleed approximately once a month. And what's happening when that takes place? We have a uterus. Yep, it's all up inside there. So north of the vagina, don't have to ask that question, T. I know you were thinking it. And no to both of you, you can't actually touch it with your parts. So
What is that part that I'm hitting, though?
You're actually, if you're hitting something, it might be like the clitoris, which, don't get it twisted, that's way bigger than you think it is. It could be just a really tough muscle.
I didn't know where that was.
Or you still don't, for the record. And that's all of you. That's all of you. Most men don't. And then there's also the cervix, but I'm guessing you guys probably aren't touching that either. Nonetheless, you are definitely not ever hitting the uterus. And so the uterus sits all up inside there, behind that closed door of the cervix. And once a month, unless you're lucky like some, and it happens more than once, that uterus sheds its lining. So I know that sounds gross, but when blood's flying out of us, that's what that is. So it's not just... Aunt Flo is bringing it. Aunt Flo brings her curtains, though, right? So, like, that's not just blood. She's, like, bringing drapery with her.
Like a snake.
And so, like a snake. And so that bloody mess is actually endometrium is the proper term for that tissue. And so when you ask what is endometriosis, I like to put it this way. Endometriosis is like having a bunch of alien uteruses growing all over inside your body outside of that uterus, where those same endometrium tissues, like curtains, are totally shedding throughout your body. And so you're bleeding all over inside your body, only it doesn't have a hole to escape out of. So it just bleeds inside your body cavity.
What type of alien?
Yeah, so the way that I picture them, because I hate the patriarchy in that moment, I look at them as like little angry midget men inside my body who are like scraping at my insides once a month. And really, endometrial tissue, in all seriousness, can grow anywhere inside the body. It can grow on your bladder. It can grow in your intestines. It can grow inside your lungs. It can grow on your brain.
Jesus.
It can grow behind your eyes. It can literally grow on your nerves. It can grow anywhere inside the body. And
As a man, why should I care about this?
Yeah, because first of all, one, guaranteed you all have been with a woman that has it, and knowing about it can be really helpful to you so you don't get your dick bit off. And
That's
two, right? Like, first and foremost, think about it. And
no
then
scraping.
Yeah, no doubt. And then 2, technically, you guys could get it. Now, here's the deal. I think you both think you're pretty special, and you'd have to be special to get it, because I believe there's only 20 reported cases of men actually getting it. But point being, you can get it.
I had a vasectomy, though, so I don't think I can get it.
No. Just like a woman, it doesn't stop based on any of those reproductive surgeries. It just keeps on growing.
And are you a endometriosis survivor?
Oh, not a survivor. I'm a victim all the way. Yup, I'm playing the victim card right now. And that's because there's no cure for this disease. Yeah, so no, I do. I am a sufferer, if that's the way to put it. Suffrage movement 2020. So I was diagnosed with it just over a year ago, so about a year and a half ago, but have lived with it for a very long time, about, I would say, knowingly of symptoms that I can now associate to it, almost 2 decades, which puts me at like 3 years old. I'm kidding, but yeah.
How do you know you have endometriosis? Because everything I'm looking up online as far as symptoms just seems like you're getting your period.
So that's exactly right, Safe. You're so intelligent. See, I knew this was the right move to come on this podcast and talk about women's health. I could have gone on any podcast, but this one, I said, those gentlemen care about women and our health. So, which you do, because longtime listener, you brought it up on one podcast. I do believe T brought it up, and I said, I'm going to get on that podcast and talk about women's health. So here we are. I know, right? So all of the symptoms that are associated with endometriosis, they vary by individual woman. So that makes it really hard. It's not just a standardized disease. And yes, all of the symptoms are basically the symptoms that are associated with being a woman. So it includes abdominal pain, it includes bloating, it includes heavy bleeding, it includes pain during sex. Don't get it twisted. Those girls aren't always into it. I know, right? That's why we're all so good at making you think we are, because we've had to live with this for years, and there's no cure.
So the screaming was pain, not pleasure.
Yes, right? We do channel that sometimes. We do channel that.
They're very good at this. I always think I'm doing such a good job down there, and apparently I suck at this.
Don't worry, you all do. It's fine.
This is, let's not paint with such a broad brush here, okay? You're speaking to a champ, all right? Safe might not be able to hit the cervix, but some people in this room might be able to.
And for the record, hitting the cervix isn't actually a qualifier for us as women. We'd rather you didn't.
I'm not saying that I'm bashing into it, attempting to pleasure the woman. I'm just saying that sometimes...
Oh, it happens, sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. But nonetheless, still not ever touching the uterus. Don't get it twisted.
Okay. Boy, I feel like this is my 6th grade sex education class, but a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, you know why? Because they don't talk about endometriosis in 6th grade. I wish they had, right? I wouldn't have spent 2 decades being told by female doctors that I was mentally crazy.
Or no, aren't doctors just trying to check off the list? Like, okay, this is the most likely scenario, and endometriosis is maybe further down on the list?
So yes and no. I'll say my piece on this, which is I think that our healthcare system and the way that it's structured does a poor job of advocating for a patient or encouraging patients to advocate for themselves. And so, we're apathetic as human beings because doctors are supposed to cure us. So we don't take our healthcare into our own hands. And then doctors are absolutely trying to churn out patients, money talks. And so when you put that deadly combination together, absolutely they're trying to check boxes. But I'm not going to discredit the fact that what we do know about endometriosis is that it is incredibly difficult to diagnose because there isn't a test for it. There isn't a way to determine like definitively that a woman has it without surgery. Now we can talk about why that is. We can talk about the fact that, there isn't enough money and effort and interest put towards studying it and doing clinical trials in order to come up with a cure for it. But more importantly, it exists. It is incurable. It's difficult to detect. Those are all facts. And therefore, it's going to be a longer journey and conversation that a doctor needs to have. And it's not going to happen in 15 minutes when your symptoms are the same as every other woman.
So you had to have surgery just to figure out, they had to cut you open just to figure out if you had this.
Yeah, and you have to commit to that, and a doctor has to commit to that. So here's what I'll tell you. The reason that takes so long, and on average, a woman who is diagnosed with endometriosis takes approximately 7 to 10 years average to get that diagnosis. That's every woman that gets diagnosed with it. On average, it's taking her that many years of a journey to get diagnosed, because over the course of those years, she's being told it's everything else. Everything from you have IBS, or you just have heavy periods, or you're just a woman, or you're mentally ill. Sure, a thyroid can come into play, but there's so many different things that can go wrong in a reproductive system that endometriosis is just one of the many different disorders. And so when you think about how many disorders can take place specifically in the female reproductive system, it's no wonder we're all afflicted with something.
So what do we do?
Yeah, first of all, we talk about it. So you are doing it, T. Like, this is really a big deal, because if you think about those symptoms, we as women are often feeling like we shouldn't talk about these things, because how many times have you heard that a woman has a headache? How many times have you heard us complain about stomach pains? How many times, I could go on, right? We get tired of hearing ourselves complain about it. And so more often than not, women suffer in silence. Contrary to what you think, since we talk so much, I'm the first to admit that. However, we do suffer in silence a lot of that time. And then we get used to being in pain. And that's not okay, because we need to be willing to talk about it. So you guys are doing a huge part by letting me come on and run my mouth about this first, so that people start to recognize it. Oh, good. I can't wait to hear this. Can't wait to hear this. But when I'm in pain,
I take pills. And the pain's supposed to go away, or I do some CBD gummies or something like that, or...
Your life sounds easy.
And this is just constant pain. You've been in constant pain forever.
Yeah, so it's considered chronic pain, in fact. And so chronic pain means that there's always a numb or dull level of pain. And so the reason that happens is when we talked about what endometriosis is inside the body, it's inflammation. So when you think of the concept of something being inflamed, whether it's on the outside of your skin and something gets, it ends up swelling up, or it bleeds, or it's in pain, that's happening inside my body in various areas all the time, because there is tissue that is abnormal.
Turmeric can't stop this?
I've tried rubbing it on there, I'm kidding. So no,
what about naproxen?
Yeah, so here's the thing about all of that is that if you think about chronic pain, right, and you're going to live with this literally forever, because the first thing somebody wants to tell me is, why don't you just get a hysterectomy and have all your parts removed? Doesn't that solve it? It doesn't, actually, which is also very confusing. And so knowing that you live with this forever, knowing they can't tell you what it is it an inflammatory disease? Is it an autoimmune disease? They don't know. The reality is I could live a lifetime on painkillers, but what kind of quality of life is that? But that's really, when it comes down to treatment, I think it's a joke to even argue that there's treatment associated. So they say treatments that would be sanctioned by traditional medicine are hormones, so hormone treatments, but hormone treatments more often than not have a negative impact and side effect on the quality of life of the patient, and aren't intended to be used long term, and then can have life-threatening side effects depending on the type of hormones that they put you on. And then they give you, so you could have surgery, but one surgery doesn't cut it because it keeps growing back, so you have to keep having surgeries to keep removing it and physically cutting it out of your body. And then they tell you, well, stress and diet, if you manage stress and you manage your diet. And I'm like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. Now I'm stressed out. So that's not working. And those are the treatment plans. So really it takes a patient like myself to go, oh, I'm going to take this into my own hands and say, you know what, doctors, you don't know what you're talking about, because nobody does, because you guys don't know enough about this disease. So yeah, I've had to become my own advocate and my own at-home DIY doctor, doing my own surgeries. I'm kidding. I'm not, but I'm ready.
Now, are you eating differently as a result of this?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So when I kind of realized I only had one option if I didn't want to go on hormone therapy, if I didn't want to end up having a surgery every couple of years, which is a reality because so many women have this. And the more I talk about it, the more I meet women in my life who I just had no idea because they don't talk about it. And they're going through multiple surgeries over the course of their lifetime. I didn't want that. So, you know, my doctor and I looked at each other and I said, okay, what other option? That's when she's like, well, you can try to manage this with diet. And I said, well, that's not going to be easy. I said, because I've already been living a life for over a decade of a very restrictive plant-based diet. Isn't that what the world would tell me I'm supposed to do?
My sister would.
And including your sister. And so, yes, that was what I was doing, was trying to manage my diet through a plant-based diet, hoping that that would somehow matter, that how dare I change that. And I finally came to my senses most recently when you just realize everything else you've done isn't working. So might as well try that. And so I got pretty darn radical.
Wait a second. Did you try the Beyonce diet at all?
Is the Beyonce diet just drinking lemonade?
Cayenne pepper lemonade.
Yeah, that's not that's not a diet. But yes, I've totally done it. So we like to refer to that as a cleanse save. Gotcha. It makes us feel better about ourselves. No, I got straight radical and said, you know, fuck vegetables, because clearly those aren't saving my life. Maybe you are the fucking problem. And so I had to like just drag out, you know, beat up fest in my kitchen with the vegetables and said, you know what, I'm going to start eating fucking meat. And then I was like, I'm not only just going to eat meat, I'm going to eat the fucking heart, and I'm going to eat the liver, and I'm going to eat the brain. And so I got weird and went like
that's what my dog
carnivore. Eats. Yeah, I basically eat like your dog at this point. My dog eats that way too, and she's so happy. And so organs, really healthy animal fats. And I understand your sister in the world are telling me I'm going to die of a coronary disease. I'm not, I assure you.
Well, no one's eating the organs of animals.
No, but you know how cheap they are? You do. If you're feeding them to your dog, you know how cheap they are. They're so nutrient dense. So if you think about the way we used to live way, 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 way back when, we ate really, really nutrient dense, healthy.
Hunter-gatherer.
Yeah, man, right? But here's why everyone's going to tell you that actually causes inflammation, because people are buying, you know, shit meat at the grocery store that was, you know, fed God knows what, each other. I don't know. And so... Steroids. Yeah, and that's honestly, that's absolutely right though, Safe. That's where they tell you not to, because you're adding more hormones into your diet. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm sourcing this from a weird little Amish farm down at the Chiricahuas. Don't you tell me what these cows have been eating. They're eating grass. I know they are. I see pictures once a week. So it did, like literally, I changed my diet to the point where I'm caring so much about the farm that the meat comes from, where that animal fat is coming from, rendering down my own tallow. So yeah, my diet changed and I feel effing amazing, by the way. And so while I won't say that the carnivore diet is for everyone, I totally get that. I'm not knocking it at this stage relative to telling people to start thinking about the nutrient density of the foods that they're eating.
How do you cook the organs?
So it depends. It depends on the type of organ, because every organ's a little different. But generally speaking, you're sauteing it up on a pan, like pan fried kind of thing.
You're just eating menudo, basically.
Yeah, minus all the shit in menudo, minus Ricky Martin.
Let me just say,
Livin La Vida Loca. Livin La Vida Loca.
Now that you said that, now I have a comment on that. I tried playing that as we were rolling into Vegas, and I was wearing my rainbow glasses, and Zach turned it off immediately. I was pissed. I was like, how are you going to deny Ricky? How are you going to deny Ricky like that?
No one denies Ricky. No one.
I was pretty upset.
We've been reaching out to him for interviews. He refuses to respond.
Maybe he'll hear this podcast and feel like now we're legitimate. They talk about women's health.
Right.
Now that we have a resident women's health expert who hopefully will be a regular, because I'm learning a lot about women's problems.
Yeah, and this is only one of many for the record.
I will also say regarding diets, Frank gets the finest kibbles and bits from Rachel Ray, and he seems to be doing just fine. And the plant-based diet that your sister is on is doing just fine for her, if I do say so myself.
To each their own. To each their own.
He's doing his best. Oh, he's doing his best.
You struggle so much to call me a dick.
To each their own. Dick is saying that everybody's bodies are differently. So not everybody is going to show the same symptoms or react to the same treatments the same way. This seemed to be a very catered plan to your specific body.
Yes.
Which begs the question, why were you cursed?
Well, I know, right? But I would argue all women are. And I will save my thoughts on plants being toxic to everyone for the next time I'm a guest here.
I'm a fan of, I think broccoli is pretty amazing.
So, yeah, I think there's, like you said, bodies are going to respond
cauliflower
differently.
pizza. Cauliflower pizza is amazing.
Yeah, broccoli and cauliflower, cruciferous vegetables, they have a genuinely good effect if your body is able to break them down appropriately, because that matters. Your microbiome, again, whole nother topic. We can talk about it another time.
What about colored greens?
Sure, any of those have an opportunity in your body to help manage estrogen. But remember, plants also create phytoestrogens and different types of like molecules that interact as or react in your body like hormones. So when hormones are your issue, which it is for most of us as women, that these are hormonally based disorders in our bodies. That's where they stem from. Plants can actually do a huge disservice to us.
Do you think birth control contributed to any of these ailments?
So because we don't know enough about endometriosis and where it comes from, I will say that I can't suggest it contributed to my endo. In fact, I was put on birth control super young to control heavy bleeding. Heavy bleeding is a symptom of endometriosis, but when I was that age, doctors weren't thinking or talking about endometriosis. They were just used to girls having a heavy period. You put them on birth control. And so what happens when you do that, though, especially to a girl who's either prepubescent or just going through puberty, you have now completely ruined her ability to build up her own hormonal balance without it being done synthetically from a very young age. And so I will say that in and of itself has caused a significant level of issues for me as a female, as it does for most women that have been on birth control.
It's been known to cause cancer as well.
Oh, it does. Blood clots. It can make you suicidal. It's, But, and the best side effect is it makes you not want to have sex.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible. We have to stop that.
It also makes you attracted to men you shouldn't be attracted to. I don't know if you guys know that. No, it's so true. So if you're having sex with chicks on birth control, they shouldn't actually be into you. So from a pheromone perspective, the way that women, it messes with that in us from a hormonal imbalance in our bodies. And so what women would be attracted to when they're not on birth control is different than what they would be attracted to from that biological level when we aren't on it. So we shouldn't be on birth control when we're finding mates in life, because that's how we find who we're attracted to and compatible with. But birth control makes you want to fuck your brother or your sister. It's weird.
My mind is blown.
No, I know, right? It makes you more attracted to a biological makeup that's more similar to yours. And that's not how we were intended to be as humans. You were supposed to find diversity. And so you didn't end up, again, mating with your sister, right? Or
I
your
thought
brother.
it was because of filters and a girl looks really good with stars around her eyes, and then I click like, and then we match.
Well,
and we go
thank
from
God
there.
for filters, right? Thank God for filters, because who knows? Maybe that's changing the game, because birth control was terrible. Birth control just makes you want to mate with somebody who's most like you and highly likely a family member.
Jesus Christ.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
Remember when your cousin came after you, Safe? Yeah. Yeah, I do have a brother, and I'm not mating with him. But we have to live states away so that doesn't happen, you know? I'm kidding. I'm not on birth control anymore, so I'm not attracted to him.
There is an abnormal amount of incest porn from the 80s, and that's going to come in future episodes of Catch the Sky.
Yeah, I also know that
is.
the viewership of that goes up during the holidays. Did you guys know that?
That's fantastic.
Yes, around Thanksgiving to Christmas.
I don't even...
We'll dissect that later.
This is not endometriosis. Get back to pelvic tissue.
Oh, Jesus. So what else can we divulge from this conversation? I know that there's a number of other ailments that we're going through. I don't want to start mansplaining everything. Yeah. Or dominate the conversation, but I know that our friend here recently had a surgery on his hip, so...
I was in pain.
Yeah.
I went and I complained, and my doctor listened to me. And I'm kind of getting the sense that, Dick, you were in pain, and you weren't listened to.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? No, I hear that. And, you know, this is what's interesting. And this is a great kind of next place to take this conversation is when I was trying to take this into my own hands relative to those traditional ways of treating something like this. And then I said, okay, none of that's going to work for me other than like trying to manage my diet and stress. But realistically, there's got to be something to treat pain, because while your body's in pain, it's stressed out, and pain management is a real thing. And so I had started exploring the use of cannabis specifically for endometriosis. And I got really into that, but I understand also, specifically in the state of Arizona, endometriosis isn't a qualifying condition for a green card. Chronic pain is, and generally that's joint pain, that's, you know, chiropractic pain, if you will. And so when I went through that process, because I do have joint pain, I have chronic pain, I have pain that kind of emanates throughout my whole body because of this. And so while I was considered a very qualifying patient relative to that, as I started talking through the process of treating endometriosis with cannabis, it was definitely not something that was standardized or seen as an option. Doctors are willing to listen to you when you say you have back pain. Doctors are willing to listen to you when you have joint pain or arthritis. But as soon as you bring up endometriosis, they don't know anything about that. They don't want to talk about that. They don't know how to talk about that. It's too much of an anomaly.
Why didn't you just tell the doctor you had glaucoma and just move on with your life?
So I didn't have to, because I was also able to make it quite clear that I had joint and back pain, because I do. But it also led me then down the path of looking into what does it take to make endometriosis a qualifying condition in the state of Arizona so that anybody suffering with it could go and get a medical marijuana card. And so that was my next endeavor. The activist in me took on that challenge, which is quite extensive for the record, to fight with the Department of Health on how to get a qualifying condition added to the very, very limited list. I mean, they fought veterans and PTSD, so I wasn't expecting this to go well, but I'm actually in the middle of that process now, because it's an extensive, long process, and I'm fighting the good fight.
You're like Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman.
Oh, I was thinking more that one about the dirty water, but yeah, that's cool too. Pretty Woman.
You wouldn't wait on me. Big mistake. Huge.
I think that's how I opened my letter to the Arizona Department of Health Services, was I quoted Pretty Woman.
What's the name of the head of the Arizona Department of Health? Bixby?
No. It's in the state. So Christine.
Federal. Yeah.
What's her face? We should know this. She's got curly blonde hair. She's decent looking. That's all I remember.
Dr. Kara Christ.
There you go.
Dr. Kara Christ. I was thinking Bixby at the federal level. So
whatever. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right though, Safe. You went to the doctor. They immediately heard you. They said, a man in pain, let's fix him. He must get out into the workforce again and be a productive member of society. That's not how they feel about us. They go, oh, you don't want to have babies? We're not going to talk to you. Oh, you want to procreate and have babies? We'll help you all day long. That's really the qualifier for women, just as a point to be made is...
Well, you're not going to have the right to have an abortion here soon either. So.
If you want to be seen by a doctor, you have to be interested in having children. And the amount of paperwork I had to fill out to get sterilized as part of this process because they were going to have to remove my fallopian tubes, which did sterilize me in my surgery, but they still make you fill out a ton of paperwork so you can't come back and tell them that you took away my right to have children. It's a pretty intense experience.
And you can't have children?
Technically, no. But because I have a uterus, I could. So I thought about renting it out and calling it Your Bun, My Oven. So like YBMO. And so that's my next business plan, potentially.
We just need some angel investors.
No, but you need to know this about my uterus, which is because of the endo, there's a potential that the temperature control is broken. And so I could definitely overcook that sucker.
I'm sure Mark Cuban would be interested in this.
He might. Just know that some of those babies might come out charred. There's no guarantees by Your Baby, My Oven. Read the fine print.
Never a dull moment on the Catch the Sky podcast.
Never. What are some other things that are rarely discussed?
We can get into painful sex and bloody sex if that's of interest. I'll just briefly touch on it, which is, by the way, it fucking hurts all the time when you're afflicted with endometriosis. So, yeah, and it's always bloody.
I had a mattress once that I had to put out during bulk trash collection here in the city, and the neighbor took it, and I couldn't believe he just took this bloody mattress because I don't even know how to get out a blood stain. I learned now vinegar and baking soda.
Yeah, and cold water.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were fucking a girl with endometriosis. Or you murdered someone.
That a lot of women are probably afflicted with endometriosis. They just don't know it, don't realize it yet, or haven't been diagnosed.
Yes, absolutely. That is really the moral of the story. But it's also recognizing that the more people talk about it and the more likely, we see different types of treatments that aren't as intrusive as surgery because they are being worked on, the higher likelihood that we are able to put enough resources and effort and interest into also potentially finding out what could cure it. So all of my research into cannabis as a use, that really went two places. They did a study most recently, it was over in Europe, where it wasn't just about suppressing the symptoms using cannabis, but it was actually looking at how THC was interacting with different CB1 and CB2 receptors. I know that's getting really, really crazy and scientific sounding, but essentially the idea was they were actually realizing in mice specifically that it was shrinking that tissue. And that's what we're looking to do, is how do you shrink that endometrial tissue that's all over the place and spread out in our body? And there's some promising potential that cannabis can do it. So maybe I'm back on plants.
Different type of plants. Yeah.
There it is. That's why tea doesn't have endometriosis. Preventative medicine.
I've been ahead of the game for years. I think the important thing that you mentioned is talking about it, similar to mental health as well. So absolutely. I know this is the healthcare episode, and we've mentioned physical pain a lot as part of this, but there is mental health that is rarely discussed. And you said in men, they get all sorts of help physically, but it almost is the flip side, at least stereotypically. They don't seek mental health professionals as often as women do. There's a huge stigma on that for men, because it would make that perception that you're weak, that we would believe you to be weak if you have that, when aren't we all mentally ill? So this is where my area of expertise comes in heavily, is my experience with mental health personally. I don't know how many people are aware of it or even care, but I have major depressive disorder, I guess is what they call it now, PTSD, anxiety, and I am, I guess, what you would classify as a suicide survivor. And once I finally got the diagnosis, it didn't really change anything in my mind. I've just done things personally and taken more control of my life in other aspects that have started to make me more happy. So we can get into that, later on. But I think it's important that people understand that there are way more people than you think going through similar issues. They just don't discuss it because of a certain stereotype or stigma. And so I get it. People think that I'm weak, or people think that I'm gay, for example, because I'm wearing rainbow glasses and blasting Ricky Martin. I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? I know what I am. I'm straight.
I kind of wish you were gay. For the record.
And I'm fine with that, but it's like...
In my fantasy, you're gay. Remember, sex hurts, so...
But the important thing is to be comfortable with yourself and not give a shit about those stereotypes, at least when it comes to mental health. You need to discuss those things and be comfortable discussing those things with the appropriate professionals or with the entire world like I'm doing right now. So,
and I'll tell you, I commend you for that, because I do know how difficult that is. I get to call myself a survivor too, and we only get to call ourselves survivors because we did take our lives into our own hands, right? And I think mental health is something that it now has that beyond stigma, now just taboo, where, now it's, to some degree okay to talk about. But I think realistically, I don't know if anyone's really sharing and constantly sharing, like when you're in the depths of it, especially, is a really important time to know that it's okay to talk about it if you need to talk about it. So I've always struggled with it. It was part of my decision not to have children well before I knew I was diagnosed with endometriosis, because I definitely knew I wasn't someone who should be raising children because of the realities of my mental health. And that was important for me. And so when I made that decision, it was also that ability to talk about that. And then I started realizing I shouldn't just tell the people that I'm closest to. I should share this with everyone. And that was something that wasn't in my bubble of life, something everyone else was doing. I mean, I was going to work and sharing it with my colleagues and my coworkers. And because my mental health is so cyclical, and not on a cycle that when it's coming, but it's at least it's ups and downs, as any one of us that experiences that knows that when it hits and when it happens, I say it and I have that conversation and I make it very clear. Here is mentally the best that I can explain where I am at. And sometimes that's really scary for people to hear, but the more you talk about it, the less afraid of you they become and the more capable they become of being, a support system in your life. So I'm super happy that you just shared that.
In my experience, people never get used to hearing you say that you're ready to step in front of a bus today. So
no, and I don't think they ever will. I don't think they'll ever be okay with it or enjoy it by any means, right? But if nothing else, I think you've done them a service, because why cover it up too? And so people have to feel uncomfortable, right? They have to be put in that position because they have their own demons that you're just willing to let yours out there, right?
And that's the thing. More often than not, if I say something like that these days, I'm not feeling that way. It's just a way of expressing that I'm upset or whatever. But the fact that people rarely even ask, like, are you feeling all right? Is the part that bothers me. Nobody gives a shit. They seem to think that guys are always just joking around. And it's like, sometimes, no, they're not. And it's like you said, nobody is ready or comfortable or what have you to discuss what is really happening. There's people that are constantly struggling with these thoughts. There's days that I am functioning perfectly, and I still will have thoughts about taking my life. And it is nothing that I can really control. Like you said, it seems like it's in spells, and it's not a daily thing anymore. But when it hits really hard, you struggle with not thinking about things like that every day, especially when you've gone through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only reason that I was alive is there's another person living with me at the time that found me in the bathroom having a seizure. So if that person hadn't been there, I was already in the throes of getting the job done. So they were able to save my life, and I'm able to share this story with you. So maybe that's part of why I'm here. I don't know, but I'm certainly not getting paid to be a motivational speaker at the moment.
Yet.
But we're having the conversation.
And that's what's important, I think.
It is. T, what did you, when you say you made some personal changes, if you don't mind sharing, or choices that maybe helped you where you don't feel like you're feeling it on a daily basis? Because I can relate to that too. I can relate to having felt like it in the throes for significant long periods of time, and then saying, like, I can tell you today I don't feel that way every single day. Mm-hmm. But what were some of those things maybe that you did, whether it was, I don't know, diet or hobby or lifestyle changes maybe that helped you?
Mountain Dew?
Yeah, Mountain Dew.
Yeah, it's got to be that impeccable diet. I was going to say that the sweet tea diet plan has got to be it.
Mountain Dew has released a flavor called Goji Citrus Strawberry, which I basically take an IV of every morning to start my day. Follow that up with getting fired from my job, which most people will say, how is that something good that happened to you? But even my doctor acknowledged that it was stressing me out and that I had to get out of that job. Probably wouldn't have advised me to get fired from it, but one way or another, that was a place where I would express myself similar to how I said earlier, and nobody would bat an eye. And even there were points where I would have more manic episodes and say something more serious, and still nobody would give a fuck. And it's like, I'm not necessarily saying these things for attention, but when nobody gives a fuck, it starts this just horrible spiral that reminds you how horrible humanity is, how much they suck, and why you tried to just check out in the first place because you don't want to participate in this fucking monstrosity of a society that we have established for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's the viciousness of tribalism, because we're tribal by nature, where that tribe can be incredibly beneficial and be why we do survive, like you mentioned, right? But it can also be to our own detriment when the tribe works against us, right? And everyone starts acting in accordance with each other in a really, really horrifically detrimental way to humanity. And so I struggle with the same thing, right? And so then you have to make those decisions of, okay, what else and why? Like, I talk to myself a lot about my why, my purpose, my, just, and it changes, right? But keeping in touch with myself on that and managing your own environment and being as in control of your environment as you possibly can, it does matter. It totally matters.
And doing this helps. So I've obviously had more time to do this. And it's been awesome. And as we all know, I've been traveling a lot more. So that's enjoyable. That's a lifestyle change that I've been able to make because I have more free time. So I've been taking advantage of it. And I think that would make anybody happier.
It totally would, which is why I'm vicariously living through you, by the way.
I need to get back on the road.
You can start
again.
traveling now, too, now that you're on a great diet.
No, because I'm still stressed out by my job.
maybe hike that Grand Canyon.
Just get fired.
Yeah, I know. Don't tempt me. Otherwise, you'll definitely have to bring me on full time on this thing.
Yeah, there we go.
No, you are officially Dick Francisco, our resident women's health expert.
That's it? I'm an expert in plenty of other things, such as, did you know incest porn spikes during the holidays?
It's happening.
I guess the resume will grow as you appear on the show, right? So we can add to it as the contributions come. So today it's women's health, and then when we get into whatever we get into next with you, just add it to the list. Over the years, her introduction is going to be like 2 minutes long.
Oh, and full of ridiculousness, I'm sure.
A 2-minute introduction is standard. That's what I teach personally.
For a person?
Yeah. A good introduction.
Who wants to hear 2 minutes about anyone?
Well, depending on their accomplishments and what they're going to share.
Do I really let them talk? I don't want to hear 2 minutes about their accomplishments. I can read, put it in the show notes.
Why does anybody want to listen to 45 minutes of this?
Because we're doing something that other people aren't doing.
That's actually so true. That is like, I'm not even kidding with you when I say that, of hearing even just the words from your mouth, T, in a previous episode about just the fact that women's health isn't talked about and that there was any thought about women's health. Like, I implore you guys to go look at any of those especially popular podcasts. No one talks about it. Doctors, scientists, Joe effing Rogan, no one's talking about women's health. And yet, literally, it impacts us all because you all have women in your lives and it's real. And so this is huge. This is a big deal.
We love women, too, on the Catch the Sky podcast.
Oh, do we ever? Maybe this is our calling.
Hence the reason why I said I feel like you guys could use a woman on your show. If nothing else, to fact check you every once in a while.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over or cover with us while you're here?
No, I think that was a really good primer on endometriosis. I would encourage anyone who knows a female in their life who is just in consistent and constant pain to fight the good fight and be willing to ask questions and be willing to suggest to your doctors, even if it takes 10 years, that you might be afflicted.
What was the book you were talking about?
Oh, so, and on my own journey when I couldn't get diagnosed and I was just told I was crazy, obviously I started doing my own research about the many things that it could be and couldn't be. And you read WebMD and I think I died 17 times from what I was afflicted from. But my 18th life, I was still alive. And I came across a book called Ask Me About My Uterus by Abby Norman. And Abby Norman was a journalist, but she took a different kind of turn in her life, super young in her early 20s, and decided to go into the medical field simply to be able to get access to resources to be able to diagnose and solve her own problem because doctors wouldn't. And her story is pretty, it aligns pretty well with mine of just leg pain that I would lose the feeling in my legs, for instance, when I was younger in through my 20s. And of course, when you lose pain in your leg or lose feeling in your legs and you have pain in your legs, no one's thinking you have a reproductive issue. They're immediately thinking it's neurological. And so to be able to associate all of these things, and when I started seeing other people and finding out just how common that was, it was pretty impactful for me. So I just happened to stumble across her book with a picture of a uterus on the cover, and I said, I'm in. You guys probably said you were in too, and then you were like, there were no pictures.
I learned what a uterus was tonight.
Yeah, well done, guys.
I learned a lot, and I think should we do our outro?
Let's do it. As always, you can catch us online on Twitter at CTS Terry or on Facebook or Instagram by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. You can also find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere these days. And subscribe there. Be sure to share with your friends. Apparently nobody else is talking about this one, so we should get it out there. And until next week, keep trying to catch the sky.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank you, guys.